thanks for joining us. We have two outstanding poets with us today, Patricia Clark and Sarah Dickenson Snyder. Patricia will read first and then Sarah. Patricia Clark is the author of Oh Lucky Day, Madville 2025, and Self-Portrait with $1 Million, a poem from Oh Lucky Day, What My Father Wished For, won a Pushcart Prize and will be published in the Pushcart Anthology, Volume 50 in 2026. She has recent work in Plume, Sheila Nagig, and Cimarron Review. Other work is forthcoming in Diagram, Atlantic Review, North American Review, I-70 Review, and Great Lakes Review. Her poem, Astronomy in Perfect Silence, was launched to the moon as part of the Lunar Codex on a Firefly Blue Ghost flight in January 2025. She taught for many years at Grand Valley State University in Michigan, where she was the university's poet in residence and poet laureate of the city of Grand Rapids from 2005 to 2007. Here's a wonderful poet, Patricia Clark.
Hi, Harry. Thanks so much. This is really nice. And thanks for the beautiful introduction. I'm just trying to set my timer here so that I don't mess things up, but I think I failed already. I like to have a little theme for the day, and this is my theme, such as it is. I don't know why that's not working. Oh, well. The poems today that I've selected show the world in all its beauty and all its trouble. And if there's a small joint theme, the theme is where do poems come from? And I thought I'd start with a poem. And these are all from Oh Lucky Day. And this is called Gold Espadrilles. I bought them at a market in a small village in France. Across the square, items laid out on tables, purses, hats, shoes. A rope wedge sole and gold fabric with a sparkly design, like a galactic spiral. They didn't exactly fit, but good enough and cheap. I wear them in summer or in the fall at evening when it's hot. Now I recall I took them back to France with me 2 years ago. We walked to dinner near the Eiffel Tower, and my friend Anne was still alive. We linked arms, laughing, strolling. My feet hurt, maybe her knee. The spiral sparkled and seemed to turn like the stars above, sky over Paris, blue-black that night. It's fun with poems to try out a lot of different voices, and this tries a slightly other voice. And I think what inspired this was some crows in my neighborhood. It's called I Like How They Gather, and the title reads into the first line. I like how they gather in spring, the big crows. I'm seeing 3 right now, high up, raucous in an old battered oak. They don't take shit from anyone, blue jays or red-tailed hawks. In a survey I saw about coming back, next life and all, experts offered a celebrity life, even a princess or 2. I'd rather slit my throat. Imagine the polite talk, dress codes, afternoon teas, along with self-censoring of thoughts and words. I'd be a crow, a red fox. I'd even be an early peeper, Pseudacris tricerata, or a plump woodchuck instead. I saw one by our neighbor's green shed take a couple of bites out of a month-old deer carcass. There's a word for that, omnivore. Compared to a princess with allergies, gluten-free diet, even lactose intolerance, I'd be that groundhog, fat. Sometimes something on the news can catch your eye or catch your ear, and it can be far away, like in this case in Japan after the tsunami there. This is called the wind phone. In the wrecked landscape of Fukushima, a white telephone booth shines with many panes of glass in the hinged door. And a man steps in, dials the cell number of his wife's phone, of course unanswering. She was swept away in the tsunami. A photo in the paper shows her sitting outside on a blanket, knees up, rocking back in laughter. I pick up the black receiver, still warm from his hand, dialing my sister's number I used to know by heart. No answer from the sea or her, just the whirling sound of blood pounding in my ears. I have a lot of siblings, and at times they provide a thought or an idea for a poem. And that's nice and that's helpful. One of my sisters was doing family research, and my parents had lived in Massachusetts for a few years before they moved to the West Coast where I was born. And she said that she found an address where they lived in Massachusetts, and it was 36 Myopia Road. And I thought, wow, that's a great name for a road, and I am going to use it in a poem. So this is called 36 Myopia Road, and I kind of had a few fantasies about life before me and when I was born. 36 Myopia Road. I cannot see past the houses lining this street. Next door is 34, and across the street are odd numbers. Overhead, pelicans fly in search of seawater and fish. Or do I mean chimneys and storks? An hour to Marblehead Lighthouse, a house on the corner with a wide porch finally sold. I imagined our family there in future years. A red-headed girl named Ruth never went to school, always playing hopscotch. I think of her as one-legged and blind. A few houses wore rumors floating in air around them. Someone said a cardboard box of puppies had been buried alive. A boy heard them whimpering all night under fir trees that sighed. Next day, there wasn't a sign or any proof. When my people left for the West Coast, an egg in my mother's belly started to grow into me. I can see the family sleeping in fields as they cross North and South Dakota. Ripe apricots filched from trees, field corn to break teeth on, tomatoes, cukes. Settling into the Puget Sound's salt air, they awaited my birth like the Messiah. Stars aligned and magi came on horse and camelback. Once a blue and white parakeet appeared in a pine tree. My mother tried to catch it, and then I was born. I was afraid of deadly nightshade berries, Atropa belladonna, plump in the bushes in a border near our house. Pretending to eat them, we'd gag, falling dead. We played rock school on the porch steps, banishing the witch, kickball in the street. Dusk coming down always made it look like home. One of a writer's best friends, I think, is memory itself. And when you think you've kind of used something up, how many poems can I write about my mother? Then you think, wait, there's more. And I have ended up presenting my mother in different lights. Sometimes we didn't have an easy relationship, but then sometimes I've seen her as tremendously courageous. And this is an odd one about my grandfather and my father, and my mother is in the scene too. It's called Because What We Do Lives On. This is not my gruff grandfather, not his hat or his cigar boxes still fragrant. This is what she said late in his life, going over to his small house with frozen pipes. His grown son crawled under the house with a hairdryer, an extension cord, cobwebs and spiders everywhere, and his hair caught on his sleeves. What's he doing now? The voice was not her husband's. Why is he taking so fucking long? When they were first married, she worked to welcome these people into her life, her children's lives. Christmas mornings, breakfast with cinnamon rolls and gifts. Years of gifts for the kids, a plastic comb, a pleated plastic rain bonnet, a card of bobby pins. She sat in the kitchen with him, the table with a jar of bacon fat next to the pepper and salt. If you ever speak to him like that again, she breathed, we won't be back. My mother, gone some 19 years, but living on with her iron fierceness. If you ever. And my grandfather sat silent, holding his hat in his hands, stopping his tongue. This is not his voice, his unshaven cheek, that kitchen, and its worn linoleum floor. Some poems are really hard to write, and others just seem to pop out. How that happens, I don't think we know. Maybe when Sarah reads, we can ask her if she knows where they come from. But sometimes they're a gift. And maybe this one is a bit like that. It's called Elegy Not to Be Written. Can't remember now the year he died. It might have been April, 2 years ago. I saw on Facebook he was in a coma. I read that they might amputate his feet. It was too much, and I turned away. Who wants all that displayed to the world? Was it indecent of me to go walk along the river? How I had loved him once, thrilled to be a bride. Some chapters are shorter than others. I said a prayer for his health. At the grand river where I walk, a place where a black willow leans over water, there's a patch of milkweed, stalks and pods knocked down by deer or random dogs, plus weather, pods split open, soft gray, all the fluff inside drifted off, only a few seeds reaching the chance of arable ground. And I thought I'd read the poem that Harry mentioned that won a pushcart prize because it's about my father. And it's very fitting that it's Veterans Day today because my father was a veteran. And I, as you'll see in the poem, was kind of a uppity, insolent teenager. And I don't think I got it yet. I hope I've gotten it better now. So this is called What My Father Wished For. I could never say anything about my father except he was quiet, and next to mother, he receded like a hermit crab into its shell. Is that an excuse at 17 for raising my voice against him, trying my best to goad him to anger? How can you just go to work, drive downtown day after day, arriving on time, leaving at 5? Don't you ever start asking yourself what it all means? Someone should have slapped me. I see the kitchen at Brown's Point, a round table where we sat, high cliff light over the bay, smoky stink of pulp mills, a madrona tree by the deck, sickened by sewage. He's about to drive me to Stadium High, down Snake Hill, across Tacoma's tide flats, drawbridges opening and closing like jaws for tankers heading out west to Japan, stacked high with lumber or salt, later jeeps and tanks for Vietnam. And then I badgered him too. Why can't you take a stand against the war? This hurled at my father, who'd enlisted after Pearl Harbor with his favorite brother, a brother who didn't come home from Germany. Did someone call regret permanent remorse? After my father's diagnosis, he refused to talk about death. I've had everything in life I could have wanted. When the priest came to the house, Dad sat up in bed, talking as though he'd be around weeks, as the sunset churned salmon, then mauve over Commencement Bay. Later, he leaned in, close to me, to say, "One thing, though, I wish I'd had a sister." He told me this sotto voce when I sat alone beside him, holding his hand through the metal rails. Thank you.
Thank you, Patricia. I love your family poetry. It's elegiac, loving, truthful. You use particulars, and you see the extraordinary in the ordinary, and there's just so much in your poetry that I love. And so thank you very much. I have a couple of questions for you. When did you write your first poem?
What was it, the first one?
When did you write your first poem? Yep.
Oh, when did I write my first poem? Wow. I think in college. I really didn't study creative writing for a while. I ended up majoring in economics of all things, but I secretly wanted to be a writer, and I was a reader. So that got me to poetry.
And what is it that attracts you to the poetry form?
That's a really good question. I think it's two things. I think it's the music, and I think it's the emotion. They both, for me, they really go together. I don't want to read a poem that's all about how smart the writer is. I'd rather read something where their heart's a little bit broken.
Well, that's true in your poetry. And there's also, it's not only astonishing your poetry, but there's a sense of wonderment in it. Could you just tell us a little bit? Well, first of all, before I ask you that, who are some of the poets who influenced you before you started writing poetry in a regular, serious way?
Yeah, good question. I liked E.E. Cummings because it was the 60s and he was kind of cool, kind of a radical, I thought. I also loved the Welsh poet Dylan Thomas, a poem like Fern Hill, Now As I Was Young and Easy, Under the Apple Boughs. And then a Michigan poet, Theodore Retke, who's really an incredible poet.
Yep. I love all of those. E.E. Cummings, the musicality. Sometimes I think he's kind of our middle-class poet. My father moved through dooms of towns, and I carry your heart in my heart. Those poems.
Oh, they're beautiful.
Yeah, I love his poetry. And his father was a Unitarian minister, so he would see the sermon titles, on the marquee, so to speak. What could you tell us a little bit about where you were born and where you went to school, your education?
Yeah, I was born in Tacoma, Washington, out there in the saltwater area, and I still kind of fixated on it, even though I live in Michigan. Um, I went to college at University of Washington. Like I said, I studied economics, and but I secretly wanted to be a writer. I didn't know any writers. I didn't know you could put your claim out there to be a writer. So eventually, I did have a freshman English teacher who said, "Go hear Annie Dillard. She's coming to town to read." And that was really the first writer I ever saw in person. That was a good one, I think. And I just got hooked. I went to a writers' conference in Port Townsend, Washington, and I heard the Detroit poet Philip Levine talk and read, and he was just fantastic. And when he said, people, you don't dabble in poetry, it's a way of life. And I thought, man, if a man can take poetry this seriously, wow, so can I. So I signed on for the duration.
It's funny how you said if a man can take poetry seriously, I mean, we're all, we all don't, devoted to the work that we do and to the tradition, learn the tradition. Where are you living in Michigan right now?
Yeah, I live in Grand Rapids, where I was a teacher here, and you get kind of stuck someplace. I mean, I'm happy to be here, really, even when it snows. So, we have a nice place. There are trees, and I've come to really love Michigan.
My late wife, Holly Prado, she and her father and mother moved to Michigan, Grand Rapids. She went to Grand Rapids High School, and then she went to college at Albion. And
oh, sure. What's her name again?
Holly Prado.
I'll have to look her up.
Yeah, she's an excellent poet, one of the best poets to come out of LA. And she was a teacher for 51 years. But I remember going back to Grand Rapids for her, I think it was her 30th or 40th high school reunion. And I always remember all the greenery there and the white churches. And it's also Calvinist. There's a lot of Calvinists there too. And so you have the strictness, but underneath it all, you also have the joyfulness of it too, the rebellion, of all that. But so you're living in Michigan right now?
Yeah, I am. And it snowed. It snowed yesterday. So we're in for winter now, I think. But I'm flying off to Italy to a writers' conference for about 10 days. I'm pretty excited.
Are you participating in it?
Yeah, I'm one of the participants. I'm not one of the teachers. There's always more to learn with poetry. I just feel like it's endless. So I'm there to be inspired, and our focus is nature and wonder. And I think we'll have a great time.
One book that I've read over and over is the Odes of Horace, the Italian classicist, and translated by Frank. Oh gosh, I can't remember his name right now. David Ferry, I think his name is, a great translation, but you may enjoy him. He, 65 to 8 BC, and, he writes about the ordinary things, but as you do, he finds extraordinary in the elemental, and I like his form. So I go back to him a lot, someone you may be interested in.
I would be.
Tell us a little bit about your day as a poet. What do you do during the day? And the other thing you may want to work in there is, do you write your poem in one shot, or do you rewrite?
Well, my day, I have I'm out in this little writing hut that I have outside of our house. And I've gotten really, really addicted to coming out here and writing. So I come every day. My husband gets a little annoyed at me, but even Christmas Day, I want to come out and I want to write. Because I think if you've got some juice, you want to keep that juice going. You want to keep it flowing. And I used to make the mistake as a teacher is I wouldn't write during the school year. And then when it got to be summer, I couldn't remember how to write a poem. So you got to keep it going when you can. And of course, I revise. I like to get a good draft down. It's true. But inevitably you look at it later and you think, I could come up with a better word for that. I could come up with a better title. If you can't come up with something better, I don't think you're doing your work right.
Well, you do great. Whatever it is you do, what would be a book or two that you would like to recommend to somebody that you return to over and over again in terms of poetry?
Well, that's really good. I'm of the Polish poet Adam Zagajewski. I think he's really fantastic. I don't know Polish. I did hear him give a couple of readings, but I really, really like his work. He gets a lot of the personal and the historical in there. So he's got a big scope, and I like that. I also have a stack of books here, and this is one by Marie Howe, New and Selected Poems, that I think won the Pulitzer Prize last year. I mean, the prizes don't mean that much to me. It's the quality of the work, but she's the real deal, and her poems really show what you're talking about, the real world and details and wonder and affection for the world.
Well, you have that in your poetry, and I love especially your poems about your mother and your father, and writing about family's gold, at least, and your childhood too, I believe. And also, as you say, looking in the real world. And when you look at the real world and use physical details, the reader can read them and see what you're talking about and share the emotion with you. And that's a good old tradition here in America. I mean, obviously it goes back in the 20th to the Imagist poets, but even further back to the beginning of poetry. So thank you once again, Patricia Clark, for just one of the beautiful, really great readings. So thank you, Patricia.
Thanks very much.
Sarah Dickenson Snyder carves in stone and rides her bike. Travel opens her eyes. She has 4 poetry collections: The Human Contract 2017, Notes from a Nomad, nominated for the Massachusetts Book Awards 2018, With a Polaroid Camera 2019, and Now These Three Remain, nominated for the Massachusetts Book Awards 2023. Poems have been nominated for Best of Net and Pushcart prizes. Her work is in Rattle, Verse Daily, and Rhino. Here's a marvelous poet, Sarah Dickenson Snyder.
Thank you so much, Harry. And thank you, Patricia, for that wonderful reading. I think I'm going to echo some of your poems. It would have been fun maybe to do them back and forth, but it was really a beautiful reading and beautiful work, Patricia. And I really appreciate being here on Veterans Day. My father too is a veteran, and my son-in-law is a veteran. So all of you out there who chose to serve the country, I just want to thank you. And yeah. In fact, I was thinking I'd start with a poem. I kind of looked for some poems that might have to do with war, with military service. And I actually, I guess on some level, it's good. I don't, but I was going to read one that touches on it for sure. This poem is called We Are Moving Away from Each Other. Maybe we're moving too fast, traveling 600,000 miles an hour around a star. Why isn't everything blurry? Or maybe it is. It's hard to stand still, the way Rilke must have in front of the archaic torso of Apollo, the remnant of sculpture where light pulsed from a stone. My granddaughter is unbruised and suffused with all good. A recognition, us at our best, in a world where we can become our worst. Gaza, Ukraine, DC. Let's remember how we enter the world. Perfect. needing to be held. I'm just going to do a selection of poems that through my 4 books. It was kind of fun to read over them. Not that I loved all my work, but it was fun to kind of just pick ones that might be, I guess, entertaining or at least interesting. My first book was called The Human Contract, and I'll read the title poem from that book. The Human Contract. Alone, my car window rolled down, a pack of gum to chew, keeping me awake. The radio loud and grainy on a late night, warmed inside from a weekend with my boyfriend. Everything as it should be on this dark corridor of highway. Another 45 minutes to Cundy's Harbor and sleep. But nothing is as it should be for long. A sudden cough, a deep inhale, and I sucked back a hunk of gum, a cork suffocating me at 70 miles an hour. My mind hurled to my obituary, scrolled in script on newsprint. Sarah Stell Dickinson died from choking on several pieces of Trident sugarless bubblegum between Wells and Kennebunk. I'm going to die. I press my foot hard on the accelerator, see red taillights drive alongside that van, jam my hand on the horn. Both of us drive, slide to the shoulder. An angel jumped out, pulled me to him, my back against his chest. A sudden thrust of his fists below my ribs unhinged the wad. We stood there on the side of the highway like that, me shaking, him holding me backward. One poem that Patricia read that it just really, as I said, felt like I was going to echo it is sometimes in poetry, not sometimes, a lot of times, I will do real research to figure out like what the wings of a certain butterfly really look like, or what a butterfly might eat, or whatever, which a lot of them don't have mouths, which is very strange. But anyway, I decided to look up what happened the year I was born. And this is the poem that came from that kind of investigation, which was 1954. What else happened the year I negotiated with darkness and entered the air? Color TV launched, another new cluster lit, propelled into perpetuity. I arrived to Walter Cronkite's voice, his first and mine, to fill our home, to smell the first TV dinner from Swanson and Sons, and see Hank Aaron of the Braves, the Seventh Samurai's symbols, dark roads to a secret story. And in Silica, Alabama, a woman named Ann Hodges was napping on her couch, thankfully covered with quilts, when a softball-sized meteorite broke through the ceiling, bounced off her radio, and hit her in the hip, leaving only a bruise, a mark from space. And I was measured, unfettered. One of my books is about traveling. My husband and I are educators. I was a teacher for over 40 years, and we were lucky enough to travel with kids, taking them doing service trips and adventure all around the world. So this one is called How to Cross a Street in Hanoi. Look for a slight opening. You must be a leaf to flow on the surface, the straight force of moving water. Just walk, and they will fill in around you. The motorcycles, the bicycles, the relentless roar. This next poem is just I steal stuff all the time. And this stealing was from this wonderful, wonderful young man from Malawi. And he gave me permission to use something that he that happened to him. Directions to my muse. Undo the 4 screws on the plastic back of the transistor radio. Lift off the square with care. Let the tiny people blossom in the cup of your palm. Hold the music, its weight. Write what you see. It isn't about writing, it's about seeing. And the wonderful thing about traveling with kids, when my 2 kids were 9 and 10, we took a sabbatical and traveled around the world, and I mean, just stayed in hostels. It was a very low budget trip, but the problem when you show your kids the power of travel is that then they go traveling without you, and they're far away from you sometimes. And this poem came from that truth. Near Northup, Myanmar, in a narrow transport boat slung on the skin of the Yin River, when a speck of something lodges in my son's eye, he tries lifting the top lid over the bottom one. He tries cupping an outstretched hand to fill with river water and flush it out. Nothing works. No release. The tiny assassin stinging and stinging him. 7 hours until Magway and a local hospital where the speck is expelled. Then he calls home. I scroll through the images of the Yin River, the villages he's passed in the photographs he sent, and one of his first tattoo, a peacock, feather fan folded, settled on his shoulder, that pain forgotten. I know I'm talking to people who are in California. I'm on the East Coast, and I don't think that this would relate as much. But I have a theory that I've given to some students of migration that everybody basically started in New Jersey. I don't know why. I feel like anytime I ask somebody, they're always like, "Oh yeah, I'm from New Jersey." So anyway, I am from New Jersey. One theory. Some students of migration believe that all life spawned from New Jersey, that we began on exit and entrance ramps of the turnpike, nourished by the Garden State. Pecks of tomatoes and peaches my mother used to bring to Vermont in the summer, store them in the cool basement. An endless supply, migrating north and south. Vestiges of beaches, pine barrens, strip malls, leaving a home. Echoes of where we were, what we miss, what we run from. I've some themes in my poetry that have to do with book. I was an English teacher for 38 years, and there's so many books I loved working with. Perhaps the book that I read almost, I think, every 38 times was To Kill a Mockingbird, and I sometimes will find Scout or Gem in my poetry. The Odyssey is a book that I loved teaching in it. As all books, it taught me so much. So these next 2 poems reference stuff from the Odyssey. To see the healing. Now that the wildflowers have come up and ferns unfurled in the soft ruffle of new grass, it doesn't look like destruction, but trees were wounded, their stumps and roots a testament to what once stood. I can almost see the stitched leaves and branches when I look into the open sky. The earth heals itself, and so do we. The burned blister on my knuckle still glistens with something like blood, but new skin is weaving itself together. This small healing makes me believe in a God more than all the hours I spent on a wooden pew where I played hangman with my sister on the back of the Sunday program. And now, to wake up, fine, the way the earth pulls off its lid of ice and lilacs burst their heavy purple lungs, the way a desert can yield a succulent or an armadillo. We can mend. Even the worst diagnosis can be rinsed of almost death. The fear of leaving leaves. Hope returns. It's my favorite epic simile in the Odyssey. When Penelope first speaks to the old beggar, who is Odysseus transformed by Athena to mete out justice. As the snow melts, mountain streams run full, so her white cheeks wetted by those tears. Somehow she knows she is with him. And this poem too is called Entering the Odyssey. I like thinking of Penelope. Watch her weave and unweave. Maybe see Athena slip into her room, hover over the bed built into a tree, ease her into dream. See the stone ledge of her window lined with a white-tipped feather, milky curves of shells and small bones, like something on our kitchen sill, a wishbone among the dust and keys and curled rubber bands. The furcula, what a bird needs to pull its wings up and down. My mother dried it in the sun, the arched V reminding me of the skeletal remains of a tiny angel's cast-off wings, where it waited the breaking and wish-granting, the weight of waiting, of anticipating who gets the larger part. My small index finger being brave, willing to have a wish unmet. So much in what vanishes, too much to count. Who has the more cherry pits in the bottom of her bowl? Who holds her breath longest in the underworld of water? Who gets the paper ring of a grandfather's cigar? Will we ever get what we want? Maybe all hope is an old beggar. I'm just going to read a couple other poems from my most recent book. This one is called Inhabiting an Ant, after Ross Gay. The hunger of it, the grip, even when it is upside down. The smallness, the finding of an opening in a box of sugar, that endless sweetness. And in this way, I feel fine when it slips unhit into darkness between the counter and stove. And in this way, we survive side by side, my hand silenced as I watch another one find its way up the steep wall of the smooth ceramic sink, climb with an ease I wanted in Patagonia, my backpack snug against my body, my poles a part of my arms, scaling rocky inclines, moving in unimaginable beauty, so far from this kitchen, in unbroken land, skirting turquoise lakes, under clouds collecting like a partition above, wind everywhere. Giving thanks. This morning, I awoke in gratitude and actually said aloud, "Thank you, Ambien. Thank you, Mom and Dad, and God, just in case." My husband already stretching and exercising after checking for limp-tailed prostate mounds of fur in the traps he'd set the night before, and takes them to a place I only imagine. a sad scatter of tiny skeletons. I will let a mouse scurry on the floors and in drawers long before I'll pick up that small quietness and wing it into woods. Not all death I avoid. As a hospice volunteer, I have felt the last beat of more than one heart, touched stilled skin that lacquers as it leaves, believe that death and birth share a world. I should thank him first, before the relief of sleep, before my dead parents, and before a deity I do not know. He is the person who saved a different me, more swelled with need, not exactly like the helicopter that lifted the lobsterman from Montauk after hours of treading dark water with only a small buoy, but like that. And I was going to read one last piece. This is a golden shovel, which is a cool kind of poem where you are writing into the words of someone else's piece. And you can take a couple lines from somebody else's work, or if it's short, probably an entire poem. I end up doing it quite a bit with, I love doing it. It's basically like you're using, I think I can't really explain it except that the last word of every line actually creates a poem, is the poem or a line from a poem of someone else. So as an example, this is a golden shovel of Jack Gilbert's last two lines from Failing and Falling. And I'll just read those last two lines and then I'll read my poem. His words are, I believe Icarus was not failing as he fell, but just coming to the end of his triumph. And because I loved those words so much, I'm going to write, they're going to be the last word in each of my lines. The waiting at gate 28. There was a house sparrow I saw hopping on the swirling lines of carpet I believe someone must have chosen for the DC airport. Perhaps a place Icarus should have spent more time, a place where I was spending too much time, not flying home, failing to board as my flight was delayed and delayed. He probably would have taken notes, recalling how he fell, maybe studying the small bird's ruffled wings or the shiny ones outside ready to fly. Just brush, but I'm seeing him swimming back to the shore, just brushing off the beaded sea, not believing in a leaving, more of a coming, the way we all get chances, or most of us do, to be better. The way re at the beginning of a word means again, not the end. How the Dalai Lama believes every morning he is a new reincarnation, each opening of his eyes a restart, his fingers moving, his chest rising, all a triumph. So thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Sarah. Your poetry is deeply touching. It's tender and empathetic. You know, I love your clarity in your poetry and your family poems, and also your sense of discovery. And there's hope in your poetry. And as you just mentioned, that last piece about new incarnation, reincarnation, just that belief in the goodness of all of us together. So thank you for such a beautiful reading.
Thank you for wanting me to, and I appreciate that.
What is
Sorry, Harry, can I add one thing really quickly? Because I know you've got great questions and then another great conversation's about to get started.
Go ahead, Jen.
Sarah, I just wanted to share, I'm from New Jersey.
Oh, see? It's crazy. We all started there.
That's great.
Thank you,
New
Jennifer.
Jersey. When we were young, we used to learn the alphabet by the letters and the names of the states. And one section was what did wear, boys? What did Della wear? She wore a brand new jersey. So we learned the states. Actually, we learned the states of America that way. But to get back to Sarah, when did you write your first poem?
Harry, I came out of the womb writing poetry. I did. I couldn't stand how much I loved seeing words on a page. And when I found out that you could create line breaks wherever you wanted, I was in. I don't know. It just was so fun to see something that I loved words, and I loved seeing how I could put them on a page in a way that only I could, as opposed to, all across in a sentence and periods and yeah. So
that's great. And what attracts you to the poetry form?
I think it is that independence of figuring out where, I don't know, where you're going to put things, and there's a puzzle aspect to it. But honestly, the thing that I love the most about poetry, both reading it and writing it, is the surprise of it. The surprise of it as I'm writing it, and the surprise of it as I'm reading it. That there's something that happens either with language or the music of it or the form of it, and always by the end of the poem, if you've let the poem do its work, you've figured something out that you didn't know you knew. So I think it's the surprise of it that's so. It's really fun to me. Like, it's just fun. It's painful sometimes because if I don't censor myself and I allow myself to go where I need to go or where the poem wants to go, it's not always happy and cheerful, but it's where I needed to go. So I love the surprise of poetry.
And what you said is what is evident, obviously, in your poetry. So thank you very much for just a beautiful reading. Patricia, why don't you come on and, we'll all talk a little bit together. Before I ask the next question, I just want to ask Sarah one question more, and that is, who were some of the poets that influenced you before you started writing in a regular, serious way?
The one that just jumps out at me is Lucille Clifton. There's something about her work that's just so raw and beautiful and real. So she's always been a beacon for me about being honest on the page.
Thank you. And here, what I'd like to do, if you would, please, is since you just finished reading, Sarah, say a few things or more about what you heard and saw in your mind when Patricia was reading about her poetry, and then the same Patricia to Sarah about her poetry.
Yeah, I was really moved by the talking about her mother and her father. That those pieces were just really resonated with me, and the details that she was able to recall about that. I felt like I could see and be right there. Yeah.
Patricia?
Yeah, I'm really impressed. I like how some of your obsessions that you mentioned, like travel, you get that into your poems, and wonder and myth. You mentioned the Odyssey, and I think that's really wonderful to poetry has room for everything in it. It really does. It's a very capacious form, and it's not just about you as a person. So you got in other landscapes, Myanmar, and all kinds of things in your poem, Sarah. And I really like that. See the world by reading poetry, and I bet it will cause people to read the Odyssey and read about Penelope and Athena. That's very nice, I think.
Well, so you mentioned it in the chat, and I heard it when she read it, Patricia, what Sarah read. I like your poem, Sarah, how we enter the world needing to be held. Yes, perfect. And that touched me deeply too. We have about a minute or two left. Since this is the motion picture Country Home, could each one of you, starting with Sarah, tell us one or two of your favorite movies of all time?
Yeah, I love movies. I'm a huge rom-com fan, so that's because, like, to me, the Odyssey is basically a rom-com in some ways, where that Odysseus and Penelope are just trying to get back together, like Sleepless in Seattle or something like that. So I love movies where they're going to get back, they're going to get together, but we're going to go through some iterations of When Harry Met Sally. So that's my where I can dive in and just feel happy. Go to a rom-com.
Patricia?
That's good. I never forgot the movie Cinema Paradiso, and I'm about to go to Italy, so maybe that's fitting. I just love it from the beginning to the end, and the whole thing about the priests censoring the movies and cutting out all the kisses, and then they saved them and they made a movie of all the kissing. I love the music, and I love the little boy and everything about it. But It's a Wonderful Life, Groundhog Day, there's just so many movies. We used to watch a lot of those black and white ones about World War II when I was little, and they were terrifying to me, but I don't know any of the names of those movies. They were just scary. Submarines, and anyway, you probably know, Harry.
There are some others that just stick out, I have to say, like when I think of just that are planted inside me, a movie like Schindler's List is in there. And I can retrieve scenes.
I didn't hear that title.
Schindler's List.
Oh, Schindler's List. Yeah.
And the other one too, and this is in a different way, but I just remember coming into seeing my parents down in Florida, and it was probably 10 o'clock at night, and my dad had a movie on, and I had little kids, and I was like, oh, I'm going to go to bed. And he said, oh, do you want to start this movie? And I was like, no, there's no way I could stay up. And it was The Fugitive. And I was just like, I was like stuck on the television for 2 hours, it just pulled me in.
Well, we all love movies, and we love your poetry, Patricia Clark and Sarah Dickenson Snyder. So I want to thank you both for such a beautiful reading. And
thank you, Harry.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. It was a delight to read together too.
It was.
I agree. And here's our great director, Jennifer Clymer, to move on to the next show. But
thanks, Jennifer.
Thank you, Jennifer. You made this very easy.
It is such an honor to meet both of you. I mean, I've never met anybody who has their poetry on the moon.
Hey.
Pretty cool.
Yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Before we all go, Harry, tell us about next week.
Next Tuesday, we are reading 1,000 Mornings by Mary Oliver. The wonderful readers are Corinne Conley, Ike Barinholtz, Courtney Bailey, Amelie Frank, Lynn Bronstein, and Susan Nathe. So that will be a great reading. So thank you once again.
Wait. I don't want to gloss over this really quickly, because people may have heard those names and some of them may be kind of recognizable. Some of them may not be. We've got a combination of residents, staff members, and an actor who's on our new board of governors, or our board of governors, he's a new member of, Ike Barinholtz. So for anyone who's a fan of The Studio on Apple TV, he plays the character Sal Saperstein. He was also on the Mindy Project. It's going to be a really fun week, and he is really, really looking forward to joining you for the Poetry Hour. Next week's Poetry Hour is 276 in the series.
Wow. Yeah, congratulations, Harry. That's quite the run. 275, 276. Good for you.
Well, thank you. As I said earlier, we co-create the show, and we all have the freedom to speak as it comes to our mind and we put on the paper. So thank you once again, Patricia Clark and Sarah Dickenson Snyder.